Value number 5, very big one, especially now, and that's communication. Communication, Proverbs 16:23. So listen closely. The heart of the wise instructs his mouth and adds persuasiveness to his lips. How fancy is that? Proverbs 16:23. The heart of the wise instructs his mouth and adds persuasiveness to his lips. Solomon's on to something again. So he's teaching us about communication, but adding persuasiveness to your lips. And how do you do that? Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits for Highly Successful People, had a very interesting strategy here. So what he called it stimulus, gap, and response. So when you get stimulated, someone irritates you, for instance, someone really annoys you and really irritated you. Instead of responding immediately like what most of us do, we just start yelling at this person or something, you take a gap. So you're like, you know what, I'll come back to you. And then you give it a gap of maybe an hour, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. And you calibrate your response. You think about it. How am I going to respond? What am I going to say? So in that gap is where you become powerful. And now you add some persuasiveness to your lips, and now you respond. And your response very often would be brilliant if you just give it a gap. Most people have no gap. When something goes wrong, they just rattle off immediately, and all kinds of damage gets done. And I'm sure you've seen politicians do that all the time. So no names mentioned, of course. But so that's very common. So what you want to do is stimulus, gap, response. So take communication as something that's very critical. You want to really be very good at this. And another format I can teach you is called TMI. Touch, move, inspire. In any communication you're going to have with anyone, make sure you touch them, you move them, and you inspire them. So use TMI as an example, and keep this in mind, the 3 keys for very effective communication. Whatever communication, whether it's you're going to use email or telephone or face-to-face, in any kind of communication, the purpose of a communication is you want to improve a relationship. You want to improve the relationship, whether it's with your spouse, with your children, with your boss, with a customer, with a prospect, with a supplier. You want to improve the relationship. So I came up with 3 keys. All communication eventually comes down to these 3 keys. So here's what they are: quality, frequency, duration. So here's the question. If you've got bad communication, now that's quality. So you want to take a look. Quality could often be the case. You're just not speaking properly or getting your message across in a persuasive manner, whatever it is. But sometimes the quality is not the problem. You're saying it all correctly. That's just no frequency. Like, you haven't spoken to a friend of yours for 5 years. So you're not close anymore. There's no relationship. You've not spoken to this guy for 5 years. So there's no frequency. So sometimes just increasing frequency will improve a relationship. I had a husband and wife client. They're always fighting. And they always have these arguments and all this sort of stuff. And I noticed one of the things is they don't have the frequency of just a simple communication because of their working hours. Sometimes you just hardly see each other except maybe at night. And also even then, it could be just very short conversations before they're knocked out and go to bed and get up again in the morning and the whole thing repeats itself. So I said, I want to encourage you to do something. He says, what is that? I'd like you to call each other at lunchtime every day at 1 o'clock. Just call each other and just have a short 10-minute chat. So about what? Don't know. You can talk about anything. Just 10 minutes. But that's a rule. It's a coach rule. So coach is giving you a rule. That's what we're going to talk about. We see each other at home anyway. So it doesn't matter. You just talk about places you're going to eat together, things you can do for the kids and whatever it is. So they started doing that. They started increasing this frequency. And initially, of course, they'll have fights or arguments about who didn't do what and stuff like that. But because I said it's compulsory, so they would call each other every day at 1. And sometimes they make amends so that they can call each other at 1, like they try and finish something up earlier or whatever it is. But eventually they started looking forward to it. And this frequency, it became a habit, and they started really looking forward, and they'd laugh. And the first sign that things are getting bad is they started laughing. They would joke and they would laugh about stuff. And then eventually they just really look forward to this. And then the husband would look forward to coming home, to seeing the wife, and vice versa. And all I did really was, I didn't even work on quality actually. I just worked on frequency. I worked on that first. If you look at your kids, you want a better relationship with your kids, you've got to increase the frequency that you spend time with them. Children spell love, not L-O-V-E, they spell it T-I-M-E, time. So if you increase the frequency in which you spend time with them, then everything improves. So sometimes it's just that. It's just got to increase frequency with people. Now, what about your customers? When is the last time your customer called you? You see, or when's the last time you called your customer? Again, there's no frequency both ways. Nobody really contacts anybody anymore. I'll just give you a very good example. If you're wearing glasses, when's the last time your optician called you? Never. When's the last time your dentist called you? Never. When's the last time your tailor called you? Never. So you see, here you go. Again, there's no frequency. So the reason you go back is pure chance. But if another optician came along, bang, you've lost your optician and you'd move on to the new one. So the frequency bit is critical. You want to get in touch with customers, prospects, suppliers, family members, and everything else. And during the MCO, it was very hard for a lot of people. But now with today's technology, there's no excuse anymore. You've got WhatsApp video, Facebook videos, FaceTime, Zoom. That's just all kinds of technology that allows us to have frequency with people. Back then, imagine if someone wanted to send a letter, it could take months before somebody would receive a letter. During Solomon's time, there was no phone. So you can't WhatsApp someone. It'll take a long time before someone even gets a hold of your message. So that's fascinating stuff. So that's value number 5. Now we go into value number 6. Value number six, very interesting value, is feedback. Proverbs 15:32. He that refuses instruction hates himself, but he who listens to reproof acquires understanding. He that refuses instruction hates himself, but he who listens to reproof acquires understanding. I thought this is fascinating. See, Solomon is saying you hate yourself if you don't listen to instruction. Why is that? Because people may have very good instruction. In the corporate speak, we call this surveying your customers and finding out, listening to the market. Now look at the companies that didn't do this. Kodak, you remember Kodak? So Kodak was digital film was coming very strong. Kodak said, no, film's the way to go, analog's the way to go, and hey, guess what? Where's Kodak today? The whole thing just fell apart because they were not taking the feedback from the market. How many companies have died because they haven't got feedback from the market? That they just hate themselves. They never listen to this feedback. The same with Nokia. When Apple came up with the touch screen and this whole touch screen came out, Nokia's like, no, people need a keypad. It ain't going to work. And guess what? Apple survived and Nokia didn't. So of course now it's coming back in a different shape. But again, it's all about feedback. So this value, when it comes to this value, you want to understand something here. It's about giving and receiving feedback. You must be able to give feedback to the people who need it, and you must be able to receive feedback so that you can change. You don't have to hate yourself. You can change. And if you listen to this feedback, you gain understanding about what you're doing right and wrong. And this is very powerful because sometimes you may think a certain way is right, but your customers may think otherwise. Like I've got my clients who own restaurants, and we would survey customers. There was one time we had this client who owns this steamboat restaurant. We do steamboat, and it's mostly the target market is mostly Malay families that would come and have the steamboat. So we were looking at, okay, let's survey them and let's look at changing the menu and increasing and to increase our sales, let's get better things out and all that sort of stuff. So we surveyed them. So here's what I thought and here's what they thought. They thought from the surveys that the most important thing they could do to improve would be maybe have fried rice or this or that or whatever it was. But no, that's not what majority of the customers actually said. The majority of the customers actually said this. They wish that there was a play area for the kids and a kids menu. So the kids can just play and have that, and then they can focus on enjoying themselves and enjoying the steamboat. And we thought, wow, it's the last thing on our mind was to develop a children's play area. So you see, there you go. So the feedback can change everything. And then when we did that, guess what? The restaurant exploded with business. So you see, you want to really, really pay attention to this. And Solomon is on to something again. So that's the receiving of feedback. Now the giving of feedback. There's one rule I always tell people when you want to give someone feedback, because some people call it constructive criticism or whatever you want to call it. But that's a simple rule. Love and respect. If you're going to give someone feedback, give it with love and with respect, and it's for their benefit and not for you. Not for you to feel better, to feel like, see, I told that person off. No, it's actually for their benefit so that they continue to do well, to have high performance, to make a lot of money and everything else. So you must be able to receive feedback and you must be able to give feedback. Beautiful lesson from Solomon. And that's value number 6. Now we come to the final one, value number 7.